What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Protect Our Queens podcast presented by Basketball Society. With me, as always, my brother in Christ, my partner in women's basketball crime, my guy, the founder of Basketball Society, Martin Sories, my guy. Happy Wednesday. How we feeling?
What's up, Dwayne Marcus? Let the people know. Let the people know. It's Protect Our Queens time, man. Women's basketball is booming right now. So if you're a women's basketball fan, this is the place to be. If you just love basketball in general, then definitely subscribe to the channel here on Basketball Society. We take pride in being really one of the only basketball platforms out here that genuinely and consistently cover both men's and women's basketball, because it's all good hoops to us, man. So we're live here on a Wednesday night. Welcome. Good to be here. What's up, Dwayne Marcus? Let the people know. Marcus always introduces me, and I don't think he's yet to say his name when he starts this podcast. And I think that's a travesty that you give me this whole intro, the founder of Basketball Society, my brother in crime, and all this. I'm like, hey, man, they don't know who you are.
Here.
They don't know who you are. You said with me, like, well, who are you? With me as always. Like, well, who is he with? Who's the? Let the people know. What's up, Jeremy? What's good, man?
What's up, Jeremy? We appreciate the love. How are you feeling, my guy? We got some good
stuff tonight, man. Good stuff tonight.
Oh, would you look at this? Hannah has 41, 9, and 13 steals. And it's
I did peek in on that box score before we came in. You know, I don't make too much about these early games. You know, Akron and games against Bowling Green and all these different games. Like I don't put too much stock into these early games, but it's a nice early indicator to look at rosters and skill sets and see what people are working with. So we're going to talk about Hannah later. We're talking about Hannah later on tonight. So stick around for that conversation.
Yeah, we are talking about Hannah later on tonight. We're talking about whether or not she's the best guard in the country. We're going to get into a little bit of some South Carolina, what is the most balanced South Carolina team I've ever seen. We're going to start the show tonight talking about a little bit of some unrivaled basketball. There's a lot to get into tonight, Martin, and I'm very excited. So let's get right into it.
Protect our queens.
They told me A'ja Wilson wasn't marketable, bro.
Do you practice this? Was this spur of the moment?
Is Juju Watkins better than Caitlin Clark? I feel like people have been saying that already.
I mean, there's the argument that she was the best point guard as a rookie last year.
I still think Arike is a better basketball player than Sabrina Ionescu is.
Napheesa Collier is unstoppable right now.
Maybe, just maybe, Napheesa Collier is breathing down her neck. A'ja Wilson knows it too. Our intros and just the instrumentals, you always get me feeling a little jiggy every time. I don't know what it is, but
getting jiggy with it.
Yeah, I get jiggy. Let's talk about the unrivaled rosters. The 2026 unrivaled season is just a couple months away. As you can see, there are 8 teams this year instead of 6 that were there last year. The new teams this year are the Breeze 5. A lot of interesting rosters here. The one-on-one tournament will be back again this season. And there's just a lot to unpack here, Martin. What are some of your initial reactions to the unrivaled rosters? Any teams that you're really looking out for? Any new players that you're excited to see? Let's talk about this unrivaled stuff real quick.
Yeah, I feel like all eyes are going to be on Paige, with her being one of the new additions and obviously really one of the faces of Unrivaled. And I do think her team, Breeze, is probably one of the more fascinating teams. I think we're all excited about the combination of her and Rakia as a backcourt. You throw in Malunga in there. You know, I'm real high on Malunga. I want to see what she's doing in Unrivaled. She's the kind of player that I think can really, she's exactly the kind of player I feel like Unrivaled is good for in terms of like getting to see how she's still developing. And in that 3-on-3 setting where you really have to hoop, I feel like that's going to be cool to see her development in that kind of setting basketball wise. Paige having Kate Martin, Caitlin Clark's Iowa college teammate on her team, that I don't want to put that past it. And then Cam Brink, that's an interesting squad right there. And again, Paige, one of the more popular players in the WNBA, one of the newcomers, one of the faces of Unrivaled. So I think you know, that team's going to be one of the more popular teams, but basketball wise, that's going to be a fascinating watch. Yeah, you've got some other, you know, some players like I need to know who's playing, who's really taking this seriously. Like, you know what I mean? some players
Sure.
like Stewie and Alyssa Thomas. Alyssa Thomas is signing up to play in that Project B league. So who knows, we'll talk about that another time. But yeah, sometimes it depends on who's treating this a certain way. Like Jackie Young's team, she's got AT on her team. Naz Hillman, I think, is one of the newcomers. She's on that team. So that could be a good team. But it's like, is Jackie playing serious? Is she playing for real? Is AT really playing for real? So like, I don't know. I'm always curious who's gonna really treat this a certain way and really, really try to compete at a high level. But yeah, should be another fun season.
Yeah, this is well documented. I was a Rose fan last year, thanks to Chelsea Gray and Andrew Reese. Andrew Reese isn't here anymore, but this Rose squad, I'm liking it. Chelsea Gray's still there, Kalia Copper still there, as Azare Stevens, Shug Sutton, from the Mystics, Lexi Hall, from the Fever. She got moved around a bit, but from the Fever, and of course Shakira Austin. You know how much I love Shakira Austin. I think the Rose is going to be a good team. I hear you on the Breeze. Like the Breeze, I think have the best. Like you said, like they have the best six. Like if they're all healthy and they're all coming with that whenever that energy is, I think that's going to be the most exciting of the 8 teams out of here. But the one thing I'm looking at, right, is we saw a couple players last year kind of really take Unrivaled seriously as at times like kind of get better with their game. We saw that like Ray Burrell, Azare Stevens, Aaliyah Edwards, like Shakira Austin, like players like that. And I feel like just looking at some of these players on here, like specifically some of the newcomers, right, like. You mentioned Dawn Malunga. I think she's going to take this pretty seriously and use this experience to kind of get a little bit better. I think Naz Hillman as well. She's the 6th player of the year. I think she's also another name that we're going to see get better because of Unrivaled. I think Maddie Segrist is another player that we can see get better because of Unrivaled as well. Like those are the 3 that really stick out to me. Obviously, love to see Sonia Citron and Kiki Iriafin and Sanaya Rivers, the other rookies that are joining alongside Paige as well. This is going to be another like really exciting couple months of 3v3 basketball. I don't think there's one team here. I mean, there are strong rosters and there are rosters that you kind of want to like see what they look like out in the 3v3 setting first before you can make a full like prediction or like judgment. But like looking at each of these teams, I like what each group of 6 is, considering who the players are. Like I think they all fit pretty well. I think this is going to be another really good, interesting season for Unrivaled.
There's something interesting on every roster for sure. There's something to watch for and something kind of dynamic and interesting on every roster. How about the Phantom having Kiki Iriafin and Aaliyah Boston on the same team? How about that? You throw Satu in there, Dana Evans, Kelsey Plum, Natasha Cloud. That could be an interesting team. Obviously, just like always, health is a thing. And speaking of health, I'm curious. I don't know. I could have looked into it, but I don't know what Fee's timeline is as far as her injury, what that's looking like for her to come back. Obviously, she's the reigning one-on-one champion. Who are you looking at? Again, I don't know what Fee's status is going to be as healthy and active. I mean, she's always going to be a front runner, but anyone else you're looking at as maybe a dark horse or looking to see compete in the one-on-one?
I mean, just thinking back to the one-on-one tournament from last year, right? Like or last season, Azare Stevens and Shakira Austin look pretty good. I think they won a round or 2 in the one-on-one last year. But like all in all, I mean, Paige has to be in that conversation.
I would think so. I think so.
I don't want to steal your thunder. I really think Dawn Malunga could make a good, like the Aaliyah Edwards run that we saw where she like knocked off Stewie and then had another good. Like, I think Dawn Malunga, if the bracket's in her favor, I think she could have a run like that.
Well, I think what we saw and what we talked about even during that time was like we saw a lot of the bigs and forwards making a name for themselves in that one-on-one where we assumed like the guards, we assumed one-on-one is more of a guards game, but with these women, the forwards and the bigs were taking over the one-on-one. So
especially because a lot of the forwards and bigs, like in the earlier rounds, they were able to match up with guards. They were able to kind of take advantage of those matchups. Kelsey Mitchell's another one, bro.
I was just about to say her. If Kelsey Mitchell, and again, another thing where if she's good to go physically, if she's healthy, but man, one-on-one, who's trying to play Kelsey Mitchell one-on-one? My God.
And going back to what I was saying about players who are going to take this time maybe seriously, Veronica Burton's another one I think who's going to really. Where she's over there on the Mist with Alicia Gray and Brianna Stewart and Enrique.
That's a sleeper team. That's a sleeper
she's a
team. Lee Yuru. That's a
Alana
sleeper
Smith,
team.
co-defensive player.
Yeah, you can't even say it with a straight face. You can't even get it out.
You know, this is, I think Alana Smith being co-defensive player of the year to me is what Liz Kitley winning ACC player of the year is to you. I think for a long time, I know we kind of hashed out a bit. I'm kind of starting to like feel what you were feeling. Like I just
it is the equivalent. Your spot. I knew exactly where you were going with that.
Whatever.
And then I mean, Marcus, how about the Vinyl? You can't overlook Vinyl. Courtney Williams, Ryan Howard, right? Dearica Hamby, Ray Burrell. Was Marina Mabry on the Hootie Hoo Owls last year? Was last season? I think that's a new pickup. Am I not mistaken?
Yeah, it is. The Owls last season it was like Fee, Skylar, Courtney Williams was on that team.
Right.
I think Kayla McBride. They had a bunch of Lynx players, and like
it was K-Mac.
like 4 Lynx players, and then 2 other like players.
Yeah, they pick up Aaliyah Edwards.
Yeah,
Marina Mabry.
Yeah. Is there like? So here's something I think that's really interesting with the Unrivaled thing, and I do want to get your thoughts on this. I don't know why I was under the impression that the new players would just get shifted into either the Breeze or the Hive. Mm-hmm. I actually like that all the teams have been shaken up. Like
I do
some teams got to keep a certain number of players from last year's roster, depending on how far they got in the playoffs, if they made the playoffs at all. But I really like the fact that you're not seeing the same group of 6 from last year, just plus 2. Like you're really mixing up because you're getting to see other players match up with different players. But this goes back to what you were saying about Unrivaled last year when we were talking about this. With all this mix and matching going on Unrivaled, like it's only we saw a little bit of it already with how crazy free agency was. Like it's only gonna be a matter of time before we start seeing more and more of these players go from teaming up in Unrivaled to teaming up in the W. I mean, we saw like Angel Reese made a joke about how she showed up on Unrivaled with 1 teammate and left with like 3 because like Ariel Atkins ended up on the team and a bunch of other players, and like Brittany Griner ended up going to Atlanta with Jordan Canada and Ryan Howard and all. I'm like, there's just a lot. This is like you were saying last year. This really is a spot where which is gonna be another crazy free agency. We might see a lot of unexpected signings and moves around again just because of kind of how these teams are all matched up. I'm looking forward to see how Unrivaled impacts free agency again this year.
Yeah, and I think it is cool, to your point, how like Fee, the Lunar Owls are her team. Stewie's gonna stay with the Mist. I think Chelsea Gray is probably like the captain of the Rose, right? So Paige will probably stay on the Breeze going forward. So there is like little movement, but then you have kind of like the face of some of these clubs that feel like they'll be mainstays going forward, but they shuffle around the rosters a bit. So I think that is cool too.
Yeah, for sure. Let's hit the comments real quick before we move on. Skeptical Football Fan says, I think the Hive or Breeze will win it all. Yeah, I mean, we talked about that earlier. Breeze has got to really Breeze. I think it's going to be
for Hive too. Sanaya Rivers, she's a player who could tap in and Unrivaled with her athleticism, with her speed. Our guy Chaz Franklin, friend of the show, he says that she could be Kalia Copper 2.0, and athletically, if you saw her during her rookie year, even though Connecticut didn't win a lot of games, like if you saw that rookie, Sanaya Rivers might already be one of the most athletic players in the league. And she shot over 40% from 3 after the All-Star break. I didn't even know that until I was looking into it with Chaz. But man, Sanaya Rivers could be a player, especially for that club, for Hive. Like she's going to be an X factor.
For sure. Jeremy says the Breeze have a good roster. I'm interested in seeing what you were saying earlier, the dynamic of Paige and Rakia.
Paige and Rakia is like, that's such an aura backcourt. That is all aura. That is like 2 hoopers, swag, confidence. Like that's a high aura backcourt.
Yeah. Hive again says, or Skeptical Football Fan says, Hive have a good balanced team. Jeremy says, I'm still loyal to the Owls, Fee, Skylar, and Aaliyah. Prediction, Kelsey Mitchell. Yeah, if Kelsey Mitchell is healthy, man, that quickness that you love talking about with Kelsey Mitchell, bro. I don't know who can. I don't know.
Deadly.
I don't know.
Deadly. I want to see more guards put on, man. I hope this season we get more of the guards putting on out there for the one-on-one.
Jeremy says, I hope takes time to recover because we need her. We're talking about Fee, or are we talking about Kelsey Mitchell? Probably talking about Fee here, maybe. I'm not sure. Fee or Kelsey Mitchell. We need her potentially. And then Lunar Owls last season was Fee, Alicia Gray, Skylar, Court, Austin, and Brink. That's right, but Cameron Brink didn't
Alicia
play because of
Gray.
ACL. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Alicia
Cool.
Gray. They
Yeah,
had
this is
Alicia
going to be
Gray
really,
and
really
Court.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yep. Look, let us know in the comments down below, who is your unrivaled team and who do you think is going to win it all, both the unrivaled championship and also the one-on-one. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back from this break, we are going to jump into some South Carolina conversation.
You know what? Every man that used to play basketball in high school that was decent, like every man's dream is to go to their nearest LA Fitness and ball out. Like, hit the game-winning shot, something. Like, and you know what I do when I'm bored, when I'm like really tired, like when I'm chilling but relaxed, but I just want to look at some TikTok, I just want to scroll. I go pull up these girls that walk in random LA Fitnesses and be giving dudes that work. That twerk. Okay? Balling, Jimmy release, super slow, but they wet every time. No point intended. You know what I'm saying? Going crazy. Walking and bodying dudes. Like, I'm like, yo, this is great. This is great entertainment. This is great entertainment. You know what I mean? They go crazy. We got to protect our queens. We got to protect our queens. Give them they love. Give them they just do. You know how hard it is for a girl to walk into a LA Fitness full of dudes reliving a dream that has been deflated? And cook them extra crispy. Yes, it takes skill. It takes candor. You know what I mean? Protect our queens. Shout out to Protect Our Queens podcast. Holla.
Extra crispy. That gets me
Extra crispy.
Extra crispy gets me every time. Let's switch gears. That's the wrong freaking thing. There we go. Let's talk a little bit about the South Carolina Gamecocks. There's questions about whether or not the South Carolina Gamecocks, about this team specifically, is the most balanced South Carolina team we've seen in a while. That coming off the heels of a game the other day where 7 Gamecocks were in double figures. But before we fully jump in and have this conversation, let's go back to when Martin and I were reacting to Tania Latson transferring to South Carolina.
To me, it's all on Dawn to prove and kind of show to Tania, hey, we want you. Not only we need you to be yourself. There's a reason why they are even looking to bring her in. That's probably the biggest story to me, is the fact that coming off of a blowout national championship loss. And this is where, people were trying to compare the Olivia Miles to TCU thing to KD to the Warriors. The only thing that makes it like that is that that's the team that beat her in the tournament. Cool. Tania Latson to South Carolina is more like KD to the Warriors. They were just in the national championship, and they've been in the Final Four 5 straight years. This is, it may not be a super team based on roster right now, but it's a super program. And
Right.
they just added the top scorer in the country.
So there is a lot to unpack, I think, with the question itself. But I would like to get your thoughts first. Do you think this is the most balanced South Carolina team, or just how are you feeling? I mean, I know you said earlier you don't really like to put a lot of weight into like these early non-conference games, but South Carolina is one of the few teams in the country, because of Dawn Staley, that we know consistently tries to schedule a tougher non-con schedule before getting into the conference games so that they're ready, because the SEC is the toughest conference in the country. So we do want to kind of throw that context out there. But what are kind of your initial thoughts, some of your initial reactions and takeaways from South Carolina so far this season?
I mean, I think they have the potential to possibly be, if not the most balanced, maybe the most dynamic group that we've seen under Dawn. I think most balanced. The more I thought about it, the more I feel like it's going to be tough objectively to say more balanced when you had a team 2 years ago that went undefeated, and that was the most balanced kind of complete put together roster that maybe I've ever seen. And that's why they went undefeated, 38-0 national championship. So I feel like even just a couple games in early on, again, just looking at what they have, how they're moving, how they're playing, who's doing what the vibes are, what the roles are, what the abilities are. I am already, I think I'm going to be much higher on this year's team than I was last year. I had concerns from the beginning last season, if you remember. And from the beginning of this season, I'm liking what I'm seeing. Early, very too early prediction. It feels like we might be on another crash course to South Carolina UConn national championship rematch. Very early on, of course, it's looking like these two teams are going to be the best teams by far, and separating themselves from everyone else. I think Tanaya Latson, when I'm already watching them, I feel like I haven't felt the way I feel watching Tanaya Latson be the lead guard for this team. I've never felt the way I feel watching them. The way I've never felt this way watching South Carolina before, because Tanaya, from a guard standpoint, and frankly, I think they're starting to, or they're going to eventually take on more of a guard identity with Tanaya as their best guard. Because now it feels like Tanaya, Raven, Tessa Johnson, it feels like there's going to be more of a 3-guard dynamic lineup. And frankly, Tanaya really changes everything, because they went 3-guard lineups, in the past with Malaysia, Raven, and Tessa and things like that, Bree Hall. But Tanaya really changes everything. I feel like she is giving Dawn and South Carolina a look with her strength, obviously with her scoring ability, but even just her know-how as a 5th-year player, as a mature, experienced player. I feel like you're seeing that mesh really well with South Carolina. And of course, again, we know she can get a bucket. She's led the country in scoring. And you see that too. You see them go to her in certain looks, certain sets, baseline out of bounds. They've got the set drawn up for her to look for her shot to score. Even seeing her push the ball. So from a guard standpoint, I feel like they might look better than ever. And Tanaya is the biggest reason why, because I think her style is already starting to infuse into the identity of this team. Little more pace, little more offense, little more high possession offense, more possessions offensively, because she's so dynamic. She's a scorer. She wants to push. And I think I already see them adapting to that. And then on the wings and inside, but I told you before we got on, my 2 big takeaways are Okot and Agot. The freshman, Agot Maycare, my God. she is the player that you're going to hear me bring her up every time we talk about South Carolina this year. My eyes are going to be on her. I don't know what you've seen, but man, she looks like one of those jack of all trades, 6'1", long, athletic, can create different kinds of shots. Like, she's going to be doing everything. This girl, Akot Maycare, she's going to be one of the big stories of this team. She's going to be filling gaps, doing all the in-between things, and scoring and doing things. Like, she looks good as a freshman. And then the big girl, Medina Okot, 6'6" transfer from Mississippi State. I'm not used to seeing a big like that for South Carolina. She's one of those bigs. From what I'm seeing early on, she looks like she wants to handle the ball a little bit, push the ball on a rebound. She's a little crafty, right? So this isn't the traditional South Carolina team. They don't have and then of course Joyce Edwards is still kind of the engine that pieces it all together. She's not your traditional host, but she does a little bit of everything as well, and she can be dynamic too. So I think all the pieces of this team right now, very early on, man, I don't know about most balanced, but maybe most dynamic, and maybe it might turn out to be my favorite South Carolina team under Dawn Staley, man. I'm telling you, this feels like a team that's going to be a lot more driven by its guard play, but still imposing and versatile and athletic with their wings and their front court.
Yeah, so you did kind of shame me a little bit, because I didn't want to. We started our college stuff last week, and I wasn't like eager to talk about South Carolina. You did give me some slack for that, and the reason why is because our first game was against Grand Canyon, and our second game was against Bowling Green, and I wanted to wait until we played. Not saying Clemson's one of the best teams in the country, but I wanted us to see a little bit like of a better team before I started just making a bunch of opinions. Now, I will say to you, I thoroughly enjoyed what I saw in that game against Clemson. I did have some concerns. There was like a 7-minute stretch in the third quarter where we just didn't hit a shot. Now, for most of that 7 minutes, Tanaya Latson wasn't on the floor.
Okay.
And I think that is an area where I'm looking to see Edwards be a little bit more aggressive in those moments. Because one thing that you and I talked about a lot last season, it was a big talking point for us, especially coming out of the national championship game, is Joyce Edwards was our leading scorer last year, but she was averaging 30 points a game or something like that. She's the leading scorer for the team again this season right now, but she's averaging like 18. So like there's a difference in her output already. And I don't know if it's too early for this. I think it probably is, and it might seem as a bit of a shock because of the Tanaya Latson transfer. But I don't actually think it's like a ridiculous thing to say at all, given what we saw last season. I still think Joyce is the best player on the team. Like I still think that the goal is for Joyce to kind of be, like you said, like the engine, the focal point that kind of everything funnels through, because she is that good and she's capable of doing that. What I found to be the most encouraging is it's kind of weird to watch a South Carolina team not have a marquee, like big name post player. You know, like for as long as Dawn Staley's been there, every single year, South Carolina's had that. Camila Cardosa, Aaliyah Boston, obviously Asia Wilson. But this post by committee, I don't know, man. I'm loving this a lot more than I thought I would. This like kind of post by committee mindset. I mean,
well, that's how they won the national championship. They had Sanaya Fagan and Chloe Kitts,
right?
And
I like that we're going back to that.
Yeah,
I love that we're going back to that. But I think the thing that was kind of getting me nervous is because, again, like these players aren't like the household name bigs that we were kind of accustomed. Like there's not like a headline like I know who that player is. I know that this is a player who has been in conversations amongst like some of the top players in the country type of thing. But I like these players, our post players mesh really, really well together. The question I wanted to ask you, because it came up in the broadcast last night, is one of the analysts, she said South Carolina, what she loves most early on about the South Carolina team is that they have great rim protectors. And then she said they also have great paint protectors, or she used something like that. And she said there is a difference. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that because, one, I've never heard anyone use the term paint protector before when talking about basketball. But two, and more importantly, like, what does she mean by that? And do you see that also with what you've seen from South Carolina as far as like how that post group is operating so far?
My big takeaway from the post play is Okot. I mean, at 6'6", I feel like I'm pretty sure she's in the starting lineup. It feels like she's going to be really the mainstay. I didn't see too much from other post players. I saw mostly lineups that had Make here in there as like the 3-4. Like, I'm not saying they were playing a bunch of small lineups, but I wasn't seeing a team that looked like they were shuffling post players in. Most of the stuff I saw was Okot really as the main center. And like I said, she was doing things skill wise that I'm not used to seeing from South Carolina post players. Joyce Edwards, also not a traditional post. Paint protection versus rim protection. I would take paint protection as more so just keeping people out of the paint. So even a guard, a wing defender could be a paint protector, because when you're guarding from the perimeter, you're preventing the driver from reaching the paint, whether it's because you're funneling them or you're more physical or whatever. So I think when I heard you say that, and I think about what I've seen from this group and the length between Make here at 6'1", Okot at 6'6", and what they have, and how sound they can be defensively. I mean, they're always great defensively for the most part. But I do think they have a group that is athletic, that is strong at each level. So paint protection, I think of that as like, they have the kind of defenders and bodies, and they have the strength to like prevent people from even reaching the paint. Because paint touches are usually equated to like advantage offense. Like if a team is getting to the paint a lot, that's usually a good sign for the offense, bad sign for the defense. So in terms of that, that's how I would think of that. But I like, again, Okada is 6'6", and we talked a lot last year about how they didn't have the 6'6" Camilla in there. That was just the Lauren Betts. Like they're just taller than everyone else. And if you have halfway decent footwork and you can make layups, like you're going to be pretty dominant in women's college basketball if you're over 6'5". And we saw that was their main advantage with Camila Cardoso 2 years ago, didn't have it last year. And we saw them kind of figuring that out. Okot, I'm telling you, this girl gives them something different in the post. And I think it's really cool because it's more of a skill dynamic thing. And I think it works well with what they have in Joyce Edwards at the 4, because she's also not a traditional post player. So that's what has me excited and encouraged about this group, is that it feels like they have a little more craftiness and skill at each position now.
Sure. The very last thing I'll say is, and I know I said this like previously, a couple like back in April after we were reacting to the Malaysia Fulwiley transfer to LSU, I said this about Tessa Johnson. And I even said this as recently as when we were reacting to the WNBA finals about the whole Jackie Young being the biggest winner of the Kelsey Plum trade, because we got to saw her kind of blossom the way that she did and be the reason, other than A'ja Wilson, why the Aces won the championship. If South Carolina goes undefeated, wins the championship, makes it back to the Final Four championship game, whatever, it'll be in large part because of what we're seeing from Tessa Johnson. Tessa Johnson is averaging 15 points per game. She's taking over 10 shots a game. She's at like 11, I think. She's shooting nearly 50% from the field and nearly 50% from three. She's always been a career 40% three-point shooter, but like sometimes in certain, it's not always the case, but sometimes we see players get more opportunities, get more touches and get more shots, and their percentages stay the same. It's very rare that we see a player get more touches, take more shots, and their numbers increase at the way that they're increasing. Like Tessa Johnson right now, comparatively, and again, it's a small sample size, it's only 3 games, but Tessa Johnson right now, 59% field goal percentage. Last year, she was at 47. She's shooting 47% from three. Last year, she was at 43. And to go back to your point about the three of them, Tessa and Raven and Tanaya, with Tanaya being the go-to scorer, which is another thing that you had mentioned that South Carolina was missing from that team last season, and Raven Johnson still being the point guard who is capable of setting others up, facilitating, and also playing good defense, like Tessa Johnson just fits with the two of them like a glove.
Yeah.
In a way that I think is a better fit, honestly, for how she fit with Raven and Malaysia.
Yeah.
Because with the three of them last year, it almost kind of felt like Tessa had to be the one to go get that shot because Raven wasn't doing that consistently.
Yeah.
And there were times when it almost felt like, for some reason, I don't want to say Malaysia wasn't trusted, but I'll say sometimes maybe it felt like Malaysia didn't trust herself in some moments to take those shots. So Tessa was taking them. Now, she was hitting them, right? She was a big reason why we won that championship in 2024. She had a great tournament run. But Tessa and Raven and Tanaya, the three of them together as guards, that fit just makes more sense to me than the 3-guard fit that we had last season. And if Tessa's on this type of timing where she's just knocking down catch and shoot jumpers from three, where she's getting a little bit more in the mid-range, and she's also setting others up. She's had 3 assists all 3 of these games so far. Like she's also doing like the other little things as well to complement Tanaya and to complement Raven. The 3 of them together gives me a lot of hope, but it starts for me. And I said this as my initial reaction when Malaysia transferred. To me, it starts with Tessa Johnson. I think Tessa's going to she's going to have a really good season this season. And it's going to be great to see how her game continues to flourish alongside the two of them.
Yeah, in terms of the guard depth, unfortunate the news about Maddie McDaniel and her being suspended. We'll see what's going on with that, and if she returns, that could be a blow to their guard depth. That can be unfortunate because Maddie McDaniel, she was one of those ones coming out of high school, and she was supposed to be coming up the ranks of the South Carolina guard room. So we'll see what happens with that foreseeable future, but I think the Tessa Johnson point is spot on, and it speaks to what I said about the identity of this team from a guard standpoint is now in the hands of Tanaya Latson, and she's a scorer. Raven Johnson is the point guard, and she plays that role beautifully. Now you don't have to think of her as like, okay, we need you to score a little bit. We're not looking for that. We've got Tanaya. And again, I just think Tanaya Latson, it almost feels like, bro, Tanaya should have been here the whole time and Malaysia should have been at LSU the whole time. Like, really, it feels like Tanaya Latson and again, she's a 5th-year player. So I think at this point in her career, she just has like and I don't want to say maturity to compare to Malaysia not being mature. I just think it's a difference between, even their age and where they are in their career. So like, I just think at this point, it's like, it feels like Tanaya's maturity and her style as a strong guard who's a scorer, but who is still unselfish, like not the type to force the issue. I mean, she's coming from a team, where she's taking over 20 shots a game, averaging 20 a game, right? Like Florida State, she was the system. And I just give her a lot of credit, similar to where I gave Jewel Lloyd credit for the Aces this year, having been a top scorer in the league in years past and being willing to come off the bench just for the sake of playing championship basketball. I give Tanaya Latson a lot of credit for how she looks in there, adapting to South Carolina, but also being able to still be herself, which they, Dawn and the coaching staff gets credit too, because I just think it really fits. And I think Tanaya gives them something at guard that frees things up. I feel like they just look looser. I feel like they just feel different with her bringing the ball up and thinking like, oh, yo, she could go up and just shoot and get a bucket right away. Like that's not usually what you would say about a South Carolina guard coming up. So I feel like with the team taking on more of like a Tanaya Latson identity, that's where Tessa Johnson, I think that's why I think we see her fitting in more and why I think her role is more established. Cause I think it's just going to be a little more high possession, little more stuff we talked about last season. Like you had said at the end of last season, like, I talked to you a lot about South Carolina's offense throughout the season, and it kind of culminated in that national championship game. And you had said you felt like things needed to change. You wanted to see a little bit of a change here. That was before we knew about the Tanaya transfer and the personnel changes, but we were just talking about the system in general. And it feels like Tanaya is creating almost a new system. Like it feels like the system is not that she is the system, but that like her in South Carolina's system feels like it's really benefiting her, but it's really benefiting South Carolina because it's like it feels like they have more horsepower at guard than they've had in the past.
Let's hit the comments. Jeremy says this South Carolina team has a chance to be the most balanced, but the 2024 undefeated team is forever the most balanced. And he says UConn is the most balanced and complete team currently in the country. Yeah, I would.
Most balanced and complete. I'm telling you, those two teams, because and okay, so I was gonna say this too, Marcus, as you were naming names, because like South Carolina's top 7 or 8, like not too many teams are going to be able to match up with that. You're talking about Raven, Tanaya, Tessa, Joyce, Medina. You've got Aga coming off the bench. It sucks that Chloe Kitts is out this year. That only would have fortified their front court and their depth, right? But it feels like they have a 6 or 7 group that's versatile. You got long athleticism, skill. I'm telling you, OGOT and AGOT are my 2 big storylines for South Carolina this year. Those 2 players are going to make them look different than they've looked in years past. A little more versatile, a little more athletic, a little more skilled.
Skeptical football fan says South Carolina will win the Natty only if they can consistently shoot threes at a decent clip.
That's a big point. That's a big point. Look at who they lost to last year and how they lost.
That's a good point. I think I'm inclined to agree. I also just think it depends on the matchup, though, because with the versatility and the depth, like I can very easily see this South Carolina team just being a team that, like, yes, like Tanaya is there, and so like you were saying, like they are going to kind of assume a Tanaya identity a bit and be more perimeter centric. But this is, I don't think this is a South Carolina team that is completely rid of being able to dominate in the post and like
Sure.
dominate in the paint and win games that way by being physical and beating teams up. I think it would just depend on the matchup. If the matchup is a rematch of last year against UConn, that I agree with. But like if they're going to match up with say like a UCLA or like a Texas or like an LSU, seeing a more quote unquote traditional bully ball style that we're more accustomed to, they might not need to shoot threes at a decent clip because they have post players who are capable of going back to taking over that load and them just dominating and enforcing that will down low. So I think it honestly just depends on the matchup, really. But I don't disagree with the notion at all.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with both points. Real quick on the point you made about Joyce being the best player, I tend to agree with you with that. And I'm just gonna say again, I think Tanaya Latson gives Joyce a little more breathing room to be the best player and them have more success. Like last year, I was concerned about Joyce being their best player as a freshman, averaging like 12 points a game. This year, it does feel a little more balanced, maybe not the most balanced South Carolina team, but it feels a little more balanced and a little more dynamic where I think the game will just be that much easier for Joyce because you have a guard like Tanaya putting defenses on their heels and scoring the ball at a certain level from the perimeter. And I think that just changes things. I think Tanaya's presence really changes things for that program. Joyce Edwards included. I think there will be games where Tanaya Latson will need to go into her scoring bag and she will look like the best player. But overall, I tend to agree with you that Joyce Edwards is still their best player. And I think this year that won't be as much of a limitation for them. If not only because it's her year 2, right? She's going to be better, a little stronger, a little more comfortable and stuff. So obviously she'll be better. But I think Tanaya's presence makes that notion like even better for them. Like last year, I saw that as a limitation. This year, I think it could work for them.
Chicago Cheetah says LSU and UCLA and UConn are the best teams in the country.
I still want to see LSU.
Absolutely. I think the same way that the projection is the hope that South Carolina get there. I think you have to say the same for LSU. I mean, I said this last week. Like LSU is going to go obviously as far as those 3 guards are going to take them, but like they're going to need a little bit more. Now, Zakiya Johnson.
Yeah,
I watched her. I watched some of those highlights from the Chattanooga game and from they played another team. I can't think of the team right now, but she did look really good in that game. She looked like they did a good job of getting her involved. The 3 of them, Flauge, Michaela, and Miley, did a good job of getting her involved. I like that, but they're not as
Kate Koval transfer from Notre Dame. That's their big. Yeah, that's who they're big. I forgot about that transfer. That's a big. She's solid. Like she can help them.
And then Chicago Cheetah says UCLA owned. That's not true. UCLA has beaten South Carolina 1 time in the 5 times they played each other. It was last year. Great game for them. Great win. They won by big number, but they stop it. All right, let's switch gears. We referenced Hannah earlier at the top of the night when Anna had, at the time going in the 4th quarter, Hannah had 41 points, 9 rebounds, and 13 steals.
Jesus, 13.
If someone can only, by the time we get out of this quick throwback, because we do have a clip to play, but if someone could like do a box score check for me and drop in the comments so we can just see where Hannah's at before that'd be great. We've been on for about 30 minutes or 40 minutes almost since that comment. So game should be done. But if we could just get a check on that'd be great. But let's play this clip from the last time when we were talking about Hannah entering this season without Olivia Miles.
Olivia and Hannah are both point guards. Like people slot Hannah as a shooting guard now because she's been playing the 2, because Olivia is the kind of point guard where Hannah will defer and be like, you play the point, you take that responsibility, especially when Hannah had all the attention on her last year as the lead guard. So Hannah has been playing the 2 very well, very comfortably, and has turned into become one of the top scorers in the nation at the 2 guard. But the reality is Hannah is a point guard. And maybe the whole 2-point guard thing with Hannah evolving into more of a volume shooting guard, maybe that's something just from a basketball standpoint that Liv said, hey, Hannah, the program is yours. Oh, man.
So I just pulled up the box. Hannah finished with 44 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 16 steals.
This is what I meant to bring this up last week. We talked about Sarah Strong being the best player in the country, being the front runner for National Player of the Year, very early front runner, of course, but just in the vein of saying that she is the best player in the country. And I had a point to make about Hannah, and I'll make it here tonight. Let me just share in my group chat. My guys like to keep up to date with what Hannah's doing.
Steals.
16 steals.
16 steals. Jesus Christ. You know this reminds me of? This reminds me of when I said last season after the Notre Dame USC game, I got on our Instagram and I did that video about like the things I learned. And I said, and I've said it a lot of times since, like in the most respectful way possible, I'm convinced that Hannah's a psycho. I just.
Oh,
16 steals.
Yeah. Have you not? I mean,
I've always known that. Do you remember? So do you remember what did it for me? It was when she did that interview and she said, "I get joy out of making my opponents uncomfortable."
Hey man, if you watched one of my first episodes of the Basketball Society podcast, where the guest was Hannah Hidalgo, this was about the opening 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah. If you watched that episode of the Basketball Society podcast where I had Hannah on 3 years ago, you would have known she was psycho. I've known that for years.
I mean, we've talked about it. It's like I always knew it, but like now that I'm like every time I see her, it's like whatever level of psycho I thought she was, she somehow surpasses that level of psycho. It's but I didn't mean to steal your thunder there. Go ahead. What you?
No. No, you didn't steal anything. I'm just following up from you. You had the thunder. I was just saying. I've known she's a psycho. I've had my bias and why I'm biased. Hannah's from New Jersey. I know Hannah. Covered her since middle school. She has been on this podcast. She's been on my podcast. And so yeah, Hannah. Here's the point I said I was going to make last week that I'll make now. When it comes to anything, if we're talking National Player of the Year, if we're talking best guard in the country, if we're talking is Notre Dame going to still make it to the Sweet 16 because people are predicting that this will be the first year Niele Ivey doesn't make the Sweet 16 because the roster feels a little talent depleted, in fairness. Hannah Hidalgo is the type that you should not bet against or count out or put anything against. But let me just say, even objectively, because I swear I should have made the point last week because now it's manifesting tonight. I was going to say this. The way the team is set up, Hannah's numbers are going to be monster this year.
Yeah.
The way the team is set up, Hannah's numbers are going to be monster this year. I can't say yet what to expect from the team, how far they can go, what kind of noise they can make. What I can tell you is that, for one, we know Hannah's numbers are going to be monster. They're going to be monster numbers because the way the team is set up, that's what's required of her. And that's just her ability. In the first 2 years, she holds 23 records at Notre Dame. She holds 23 individual program records at Notre Dame in 2 years of playing college basketball. So honestly, like if we're talking best guard in the country, I know there are other greats, AZ Fudd, Flaugier. I can hear arguments for others, but all things considered, Hannah is about to show you with her little self how, as an individual force, without no one else on her team is going to be an All-American this year. Maybe not even all conference. And you know what? Her freshman year, yeah, she still had Sony Citron and Maddie Westbeld without Olivia Miles. But there was no Olivia Miles her freshman year. She was a freshman, and they won the ACC. She should have been the ACC Player of the Year. That was as a freshman. Now she's got 2 years under her belt. She knows the game even stronger, even more mature, even more experienced and comfortable. There's no telling what Hannah will do this year. And I've seen it up close too many times. I've even shared with you, Marcus, how year to year, and it's so tough in college. I was just talking about this with one of my college guys, how it's just the college landscape is tough because every year you can have a totally different group between NIL and the transfer portal and stuff. Like, forget just seniors graduating. You've got a transfer rate higher than ever from year to year. So you could be playing with a totally different team every year, which Hannah kind of has every year. No Liv freshman year, played with Liv sophomore year, no Liv junior year, no Sony, no, like it's constant changing. Hannah is the type where the way that she plays with her intensity and the standard that she sets, I've seen it in high school. The same thing kind of happened in high school. She had players transfer. I shared with you about it. Like her dad started coaching her high school team starting her junior year. Her last 2 years of high school, she went from being a point guard who scored but was like really kind of doing everything to like her last 2 years of high school, she turned into a 25 plus point per game scorer. Like just an unstoppable scoring force. And she carried that right into college. Freshman year, no Liv, has to be the offensive anchor and engine, and she stepped into that role. And the way the team is set up now is pretty similar, where she's going to have to score, and she will. She's still going to be, Jesus, 16 steals. Her steals average is going to be like, it's going to be at like 9 steals a game now, just a few games in, right? So that's, I mean, her ability on the defensive end, plus how she comes at you offensively. I mean, she's one of the top guards, and she's first team All-American last year. So for my money, for my vote, I would still pick Hannah as the best guard in the country right now. All things considered, I'm still taking Hannah.
I'm aghast looking at her numbers right now. I just, again,
Yeah,
like
sure,
obviously, but like she's averaging,
yeah,
let's just round up. She's averaging 30 points, 7 boards, 6 assists, 4 steals, shooting 50% from the field, taking 23 shots a game. I just, okay.
Yeah.
So here's the thing I want. This is, and I don't want to dwell on this because you and I talked about this beforehand, and we both are on the same page that we don't like comparing players to like active players who are healthy to players who are not healthy. But the one thing that I'm interested to see for Hannah this season is, and this is like piggybacking off what you were saying about how like she's entering like another year, like the team is different, right? This is the first year where she's kind of like completely by herself. Because as you mentioned, even though there was no Olivia Miles her freshman year, she still had Sonia Citron and she still had Maddie Westbeld, right? Westbeld, excuse me. Not only obviously is Olivia Miles now at TCU, Sonia Citron plays for the Mystics, Maddie Westbeld plays for the Sky. And Kate Koval, as you mentioned earlier, is now an LSU. And they had a bunch of other transfers. Like there was a point in time when Notre Dame had 2 players on their roster between graduates and transfers at one point in the offseason. The one thing that I'm really interested in for Hannah is seeing how she handles being literally the only player on her team that is a legit threat to their opponents. We've seen a couple different players have to go through that at times, right? Caitlin Clark obviously had that for a while. You can argue all 4 years at Iowa, and we saw kind of what the phenomenon of Caitlin Clark became, right? Juju had that her freshman year, and we saw what the phenomenon of Juju was her freshman year, and then what that turned into her sophomore season before obviously she suffered the injury. And we've seen that from a couple different players. And I'm just interested in seeing how
Juju sophomore year, they got Kiki for her. So freshman
right.
sophomore year was very different team, very
right.
different.
But she was able to take what happened her freshman year and carry that over into her sophomore year with Kiki, and that kind of like made things a lot more intriguing about like USC as far as like what they could have done if Juju doesn't get hurt last season. I'm interested to see because like you're right, like Hannah's numbers are going to be out of this world. Like she's going to consistently I'm not going to say she's out here going to be getting 16 steals tonight, but she's going to consistently have games where you look up and the numbers are just going to jump off the box score. But what I want to see from Hannah, and we had this conversation last week when we were talking about the players that could challenge Sarah Strong for the best player in the country. I think this very, in a way, I think this mirrors like the MVP conversations we have all the time in the NBA and the MVP conversation you have in the NFL. Like this to me almost feels like this is like Hannah's 2017 Russell Westbrook season, right? Where she's just got to go out there and she's just got to do it all. She's got to be the best player on the floor every night, which we know that she's capable of doing, right? She's got to look like the best guard in the country every night, which she's capable of doing. And I do honestly believe, I know that, even in the comments of that video that I clipped out and posted, I said Lauren Betts, I felt probably was in the best position to do it because she's the best player on one of the best teams in the country. And so she has a little bit more like of a head start. But I do really feel like,
and for context, because you said he has the best chance of challenging Sarah Strong for the best player in the country. That's what I don't know. I didn't know if sometimes you talk fast and I kind of lose where you were. Yeah.
Sorry. So I mean, we all agree that Sarah Strong is the best player in the country. Last week we talked about which players could challenge Sarah Strong as the best players in the country, and Hannah's name came up, right? And I just feel with this season potentially being a year for her to do what Russell Westbrook did for the Thunder in 2017, like if she has that type of season, I think. I don't want to say you have to, because again, like Sarah Strong's probably going to win a championship or at least compete for a championship, and Hannah won't. But like Hannah's going to put herself in a position to be the only player in that conversation who's pretty much out there by herself every night. If she can perform at a level that propels Notre Dame to a spot or a tier in amongst the other teams in the country that we don't expect them to be, whether that's making it to the Sweet 16, make it to the Elite Eight, heck, if they make it to the Final Four, where you have to look at Hannah and say, maybe Hannah's the best player in the country because she doesn't have an AZ Fudd. She doesn't have a KK Arnold. She doesn't have a Kaylee Heckle. She doesn't have a Sarah Williams. And no disrespect to Coach Ivy, because you and I both love Coach Ivy, but she doesn't have a Gina Oriyama either. Like, she has really good coach. She's a really good player. Like, that's really it. Like, it's just great coach, great player. We got to go out there and we got to figure it out every single night. We got to figure out how we're going to win the ACC and still somehow compete and be in the thick of things. And a really good season from Hannah, where Notre Dame's out here opening eyes and like winning games that maybe people don't expect them to win, and they're making a deep run in the tournament, which they've done the past couple seasons, but like doing it this season will be different. I don't know. To me, that would warrant maybe us having a much more nuanced conversation about who the best player in the country is. Right now, we're saying it's Sarah Strong because she's the best player on the best team in the country, which is fair. She also looks the best
all-around player.
And she's the best all-around player, and she has the skills that warrant her being the best player in the country, along with all of that other extra context.
Yeah.
But like, if Hannah's going to be out here averaging 37-5, and Notre Dame wins the ACC, and they make it to the Elite Eight, like,
yeah.
That's going to be off the strength of what this psycho in the middle of the screen is doing. And that would warrant us sitting down and saying, yo, we all love Sarah Strong, but like, maybe Hannah is the best. Maybe she's not just the best guard in the country. Maybe she is the best player in the country. Because again, like going back to the Juju, like that's what happened with Juju. Juju was out there her freshman year, ball like you and I were talking about, like the struggles of watching USC because Juju was just the system. There were people on Twitter like, if Juju wins a championship, we should induct him to the Hall of Fame because there was a question about Lindsey Gottlieb. I came on our show and said Lindsey Gottlieb got an extension because of Juju's freshman season. We've seen this stuff happen before. Hannah's in I don't know if you want to say it's a good situation or a bad situation. Depends on how you look at it. Glass half full, glass half empty. But it's a unique opportunity for Hannah, I'll put it that way, to really continue to elevate her stock amongst the best player in the countries. And I think if there's anyone who is capable of doing it, it would be Hannah, dog.
Because I'm telling you, man, the way she plays basketball with her intensity, it's something that is going to elevate her teammates. So she doesn't have an AZ Fudd. She doesn't have a Lauren Betts. She doesn't have a Mylasia Full-Wiley. I mean, she doesn't have like an all-American, all-conference type running mate. But I'll tell you, Cass Prosper and KK Bransford, the girl D. Jesus who transferred from Duke, like these players are going to elevate their game. I'm not saying to what level, but they are going to compete because the team takes the identity of their best player, and the best player sets the standard for competitiveness and accountability. And the way this girl plays, you can't play for Notre Dame on that floor with that uniform unless you're playing as hard as number 3. You can't play unless you're coming with that competitive standard, because that's what she sets. So no matter how you're thinking, if we don't think we're as good as this team or whatever, it's almost an Iverson component. I was just watching, I finished the Iverson doc on Amazon Prime recently, I told you, and
Yeah.
You know, Iverson was one of those examples of what you're talking about, a singular force that was so great that he led his team all the way to the finals when most people feel like they probably shouldn't have even been there, because it's not like they have this great team with a bunch of stars and stuff. They've got one guy, they've got one star, other solid role players, but it's really just one star. Everyone knows who it is, and he's going to take the most shots, and you still can't stop him. And when you hear guys like Aaron McKee and Eric Snow and Dikembe Mutombo, and these guys talk about their experience playing with Iverson, they say, like, yeah, when we went out there with AI, we felt confident because we were walking out there with him, because he was that good, he was that intense, and we followed him, and we picked that up. So Notre Dame, as we look at schedules for these teams, you know, we see where the tests will start happening, where we start to see and find out who teams really are and what they're capable of. They've got Michigan on Saturday. They've got USC next week. They've got Ole Miss, you know, good ACC opponents, obviously, Duke, UNC, Louisville. ACC is obviously a very strong conference, all the way leading up to the big showdown, the big kahuna, the one that's been one of the marquee games for the Hannah Hidalgo legacy for the first 2 years of her college basketball career, at UConn on January 19th. You and I both know what happened to Paige Beckers 2 years ago at UConn when Diana Taurasi had to go in the back after the game in the locker room looking for the Hidalgo girl, like, hey, you the truth, girl. You just put it on my program. Hannah took the life out of Paige and out of UConn at UConn. Yeah. Last year, she did the same thing to Juju at USC. So when Hannah is matched up with these powerhouses, we know what kind of energy she's coming with. I don't know if Notre Dame will win the game. I assume they'll be somewhat competitive just because of the intensity Hannah's coming in with. We'll see what kind of shot they really have and where UConn is at that point. I told you, I think UConn and South Carolina are by far early on the two best teams, better than everyone else. So as a roster, maybe they can't stack up, but I'm telling you, we're going to see a Notre Dame team that is completely scrappy, all belief, and maybe better than we think they are, mostly because Hannah's going to be leading them in a way that gives them supreme confidence. So come January 19th, that game at UConn, we know those are games where Hannah comes in looking to make a statement. And that statement is going to be for AZ Fudd. Because obviously Paige is gone now. She's coming for AZ, is what I'm telling you. This question about best guard in the country, you know, there's a handful of them. Like I named them. We got AZ, we got Flaugier. This girl, Liv McGill at Florida, watch out for her. She looks different. And of course, there's tons of other great players, great guards out here in the country. AZ Fudd is the one with the biggest name and the biggest brand, and she's at the biggest brand program. She's got a target on her back. She's got a Hannah Hidalgo target on her back. She got the hoop earrings, the puff, the Hannah puff. They're coming. AZ, I'm telling you, man, defensively, she's going to look to go at her. Mm-hmm. She's going to look to guard her and limit her and frustrate her. She's going to look to make a statement defensively, and offensively, she's going to want that matchup. She's going to want AZ on her. I'm telling you, as I looked at the schedule, I'm like, okay, few good ACC opponents. Michigan on Saturday, that's a good test. USC next week, they look better than I think people thought. Should be a decent test, right? Some good ACC opponents. When we get to UConn in January, we'll start to find out over the next couple months who Notre Dame is, and yeah, to your point, if we should be talking more about Hannah, she's one of the best players in the country. But I think you made a good point. The way things are set up this season for Notre Dame, even if they don't have too much team success individually, this could be a major year and a statement year for Hannah and how people perceive her individually as a player.
If there's any doubt on which era of wrestling Martin grew up watching, I think that lets you know he's an Attitude Era kid through and through, because that was a great promo there. really good promo right there. You got got goosebumps, got me feeling good, got me wanting to go to Connecticut on January 19th. Got me feeling good. But yeah, man, I couldn't have said it better myself. We appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you guys for taking time out of your Wednesday night to tap in with us tonight. It is always a pleasure to talk women's basketball, and it is even more fun to do it when I get to do it alongside my guy, Martin Sories. If you are not already, please make sure you are subscribed to Basketball Society so you don't miss any future episodes of the Protect Our Queens podcast or any other basketball content curated by my guy, Martin Sories. So until next time, thank you guys for watching. And as always, you enjoy yourselves some women's basketball.